Hello everyone, and welcome to the Future of Dogs podcast, a place for the whole dog world to come together and ask the big why and what if questions that will shape the dogs of the future. Join me, Hannah Malloy, as we chat to some of the world's most groundbreaking professionals intent on enriching and evolving the future of dogs. This podcast is in association with Amplified Behaviour, my online video learning library for dog owners and dog geeks. Big thanks to my dog's favourite food and our Season 1 sponsor, Nature's Menu. With over 40 years in the pet food business, Nature's Menu is Europe's leading expert in raw and natural pet food. So let's jump into the conversation. Welcome to the Future of Dogs, and this is part 2 of the future of kids and dogs, and I am very, very fortunate to be joined by the glamorous and incredibly intelligent Debby Lucken. Debby is an amazing professional that we met last week and is telling us all sorts of amazing information about how we can get dogs and children to hang around well together, to be safe around each other, to learn to love and listen to each other well. And so we're going to continue that conversation now. Thanks so much, Debbie, for coming back and talking to us. So last time, Deb, we were talking a little bit about school dogs. We were talking about KAD. We were talking about your dreams, your what if, which is to have all children understand dog behaviour and body language. So let's dig back into that school dog concept a little bit more. When we talk about school dogs, what do you mean by a school dog? Is that like a dog that goes into school, a dog that lives in school? Like, what's your vision there for dogs and children in schools?
So it'd be interesting if it was a dog that lives in school with his little school uniform. He goes in, sits at the tie, hello, gets his book out of his bag.
Yeah, goes to the canteen, joins with the children, love it.
He eats all the food. So it's not that, although that'd be super fun. It's not that. So school dog, generally speaking, is normally owned by a member of staff. Could be the head, could be a teacher. It's normally owned by a member of staff, and so they come into school, join children during part of the lesson, maybe library time, or some children might need a little bit of emotional support, especially after the pandemic. A lot of children were very anxious going back into school. In fact, still are, even though, it's been a while now, still are going back to school. So having the dog can cheer them up. The dog can also be used in bracket as a motivational thing, if you like, to help them doing some work in schools, also to help accomplish a certain activity. It can also be a subject of a mathematical problem, for example, or the topic of a new text the children have to write about. So it can be a really nice way of helping the children academically and emotionally. So the dog should come into school certain time of day, and not every day either, otherwise it would be too much. And he would be on the lead with his trusted human or trusted humans, more than one, and then do his little job for as long as the dog is happy to, and then off he goes home or wherever he can go. And so this is effectively a school dog. So it doesn't stay there all day. It's not on the, if you like, beck and call of the humans within the school environment.
Sure.
And he's treated like a member of staff that has much more value than any other member of staff.
It's hard, isn't it? Because they don't really get a lot of choice, do they, school dogs? I know I've worked with a couple, I've trained about 7 school dogs, worked with teachers who have wanted the dog to be a school dog. And I think the first thing I always say to them is, what if they don't like it?
Yeah.
What if they don't want to do the job? And it's super hard, isn't it? I think for a lot of assistance dogs, big question for lots of different assistance dog charities is like, what if the dog doesn't want to do it? Is this something that the dog would choose to do if given the option? And I love what you're saying there, actually, about maybe we really need to look at the time span that the dog is doing that job for. I think some people really overestimate. They're like, well, I'm at work, so the dog needs to be here with me at work. And a lot of the time, I know in my previous roles, I've found that it's the other members of staff that are like, we don't know how to deal with this puppy in the staff room, but you train school dogs. Is that something that you work with KAD? Tell us a little bit more about the program that you have for school dogs.
Now, personally, as such, I have my business as a dog trainer and behaviourist in Dorset. So I train local dogs if they need to, if they want to become school dogs. For kids around dogs, then, for those of you who don't know, we are an association of dog professionals. We're everywhere in the country and abroad as well. And our main goal is to work with families and schools to educate children to be around dogs and dogs to be around children in a happy and positive way. And we have a wonderful course written by Dr. Helen Lewis from Swansea University in Wales. And she specializes exactly in this. So she wrote a course for us called Dogs in Schools. And so all the kind of professionals can take this course so that they can learn effectively how to assist dogs that will potentially going to school, how to assess dogs as well that might be going to school, how to help the member of staff, how to help the handler, how to help the children. And the environment of the school itself. So we look at all the aspects that will be all part of the components that will be part of effectively the project of having a dog into schools. And one thing that I always say up front is that the most important piece of this puzzle is the dog. If the dog is not happy, if the dog is pushed too much, whatever, the whole project is going to fall. If you're overworking the dog, if you're pushing him to be in a too busy environment that he just can't handle, if he's left unattended, so many points there, then you're going to create a situation that is negative and potentially upsetting for the dog. So the whole project is just going to fall. So the most important key in everything there is not the children, as many things. It's not the member of staff, it's not the school staff, it's the dog. Yeah. So this is really important to consider. And as you mentioned before, it's very hard when maybe you're assessing a dog, that dog is not going to work out. If, say, even just taking him for a stroll around a park, for example, and you're walking by a playground, the dog is already like either pulling himself away or going bonkers around kids. It's not going to be happy in a school, is it? Sure. It's not going to happen. If he had past experiences that were negative around children or with other humans in general, again, a school environment is not going to work for the dog. So, and if he's a dog that is particularly excited, or if it's a dog that is not well physically, so many points are to be considered when assessing a dog. So it does happen that you have to break the bad news. You go, actually, your dog is not going to be happy in a school environment. So really, and it's really upsetting because very often the human calls you because they love their dog so much. And my dog is the best dog in the whole universe. Yes. Oh my gosh. My dog is like a gift to do the human race. And then you go.
All dogs are a gift.
Of course. Your dog is that dog, isn't it?
Special. Yeah. Special. The only 100% good dog.
Yes. And so it's hard to break that news. Because
and a lot of it, I think, is about setting them up, isn't it? Well, in the first place, because so many people have said, "Oh, I wish you'd have called me in sooner. I I wish you'd have called me when you wanted to get the puppy in the first place. And even then, you know, look at guide dogs. How many guide dog puppies do they start the training with and then have to just be really honest with themselves and go, this dude's not going to pass.
No, exactly.
And that's okay. Not every dog is meant for that job, you know.
Exactly. And sometimes as well, like I mentioned before, is a health issues. And very often, again, is the human thinking, yes, my dog has had an injury, but he's going to be fine. But that injury carries some weight into the dog's life.
Yeah.
And that can also affect his behavior, can also affect what he can endure, you know, how he walks, how he handles himself. Or maybe he's an older dog, and very, very often people are like, oh, now that he's old, he's calmer, so it'll be all right. But actually, he's an old dog. He can't be bothered anymore.
Gosh.
All he wants to do is chill and, you know, by the fire.
So true. And I think we need to keep looking, don't we? Because we're so quick to just stop watching. Once we've signed our dog off as being good at something or enjoying doing something, it can be so easy for the world to just keep turning and us to stop watching our dog's micro signals and actually moments of, oh, he's stopped enjoying that, or he had a bad time when he went for a walk with that person that I thought they were okay, and actually he's not okay now and he's twinged his neck or something. So important to keep eyes on. And so how does that, you know, how does that work if you've got children, say in schools, Debbie, who are frightened of dogs? Like, how can KAD help in that environment with children who are genuinely quite traumatized? Are there lots of children, would you say, in your experience, that are really frightened of dogs, like actively so?
So yes, it's actually more than one would think. There was a statistics from Dogs Trust. They said 1 in 3 children are actually scared of dogs. And that's quite a big number, isn't it? Yeah, it is huge. And there is another reason as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that something has happened to those kids. They might have, maybe one of their parents or family member were scared of dogs, and they have, unconsciously or not, passed on their fear to their kids. It could be that it's a religion thing as well.
Yeah.
I was actually recently talking to a lovely man. I can't remember where he was from, but he said it was Muslim, and I know that there's a big variety of, you know, of different idea on animals in different religions. But he explained to me that if there is a dog in the house in his religion, he said that angels will not come into his house. So that his religion was actually telling him dogs are not a good thing to have.
Yes, yeah.
And that's, you know, fair enough. I respect all religions.
And that's haram. I think you also need to wash. So if a dog's saliva touches you because they're dirty, the amount, it's a logistical thing more than anything. I know a lot of parents. I grew up in Birmingham, so very multicultural environment, and so a lot of my friends of my family who were Muslim were like, oh, Hannah, like I just have to wash loads of times if I get licked by a dog, and it just takes ages before I can pray again, you know. So a lot of the time it is just a logistical issue as well. They're like, whoa, I don't want that dog's saliva on my clothes or on my kids' clothes, and kids will pick up on that and go, what? And also I think rabies, from different countries, just genuinely dangerous creatures. Okay.
So, you know, there could be so many reasons that makes a child think, oh, dogs are not a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. So they want to stay away from them, and they could react in so many different ways. Some children scream and run. Some children are petrified and literally just stand there and don't know where to to seek for help.
Yeah.
Normally they will ask their parents to be picked up, you know, things like this, or a teacher if in school. But you see, you know, different reaction to any dog, even a dog that's just standing there going, I'm not doing anything. So the first thing is having the dog on the lead in the school environment.
Yeah.
Again, it might sound obvious, but I see this often where dogs are just left to roam within the school because he's a good dog, it's fine. Oh gosh, I've seen it so many of them. Wow. And even when you do tell them, they need to put the dog on the lead, they put him on the lead in front of you. Then the second you leave, it's off the lead again.
Complex.
It's tricky, isn't it? So let me just tell you, keep the school dog on the lead. And that is the first thing, because then the child who's scared of dogs at least can see that the dog is on the lead. So the grown-up has some control, if you like, of where the dog is going to go. Never, ever underestimate the fear of dogs, though. So if a child is telling you or is showing sign of fear, don't say something like, "Oh, don't be silly," or whatever, because to that child, the fear is very real, right? So it's important not to underestimate it. But instead, maybe ask questions such as, what do you think is going to happen? What do you expect the dog to do? What do you think the dog would do if you come close, or if the dog comes close? Ask them questions on what the scenario in his head is creating. What does it look like? That way, the child will know, yes, he's thinking about the dog will steal the fear, but for the first time, his mind is going to go into concentrating on what he's creating there rather than the dog in itself. So for the first time, you're taking that a little bit away from the dog. Then teach them, and we said it before, but teach them about canine body language. Fear is very often created by things we don't know, and we build them in our heads, and they become bigger and bigger in our minds. So by teaching them about what dogs are telling us, why they move a certain way, why they do the things they do, their unknown becomes more known. So that fear is also reduced there. You can also explain children on the things the dogs do for us. How many times we hear of dogs that are saving a life. How many times we hear, there are dogs that rescue people from waters and snow and all sorts of things. Dogs are, awesome. Dogs can also help us when we're sad and, and you have a cry because someone upsets you. The dog can be there to cheer you up. You can read a story to dogs and they'll enjoy it, and you can read without the dogs telling you that, you were reading very well. Things like this. Dogs will always like your drawing. They might even eat them.
Delicious drawings.
Delicious. So there are so many ways that you can introduce dogs to children in a way that they can relate to them.
I love
and
that,
understand
Debbie.
them.
You've just done us a top 5 without even realising it. I don't even think you noticed, but I'm just going to summate that for some of our listeners because that was absolutely fantastic. So number 1, to help dogs and children hang out well, especially in schools. Number 1, make sure the dog is on a lead. Show the child that you have control over your dog. I would say that is across the board actually with humanity. For human beings in parks, if you want to show other people that you have your dog under control, it can really reduce other people's fear of your dog. Number 2 is don't underestimate the fear. So don't minimize the way the child is feeling by going, oh, it doesn't matter, like he's friendly, la la la. Your fear is irrelevant. Listen to the child, let them feel heard, that their behaviour is having an effect on their environment. Number 3, we had ask questions. So ask the child to express what it is that they're seeing, what are they anticipating? What do they think is going to happen? Number 4, we had to teach them about dog body language and understanding of when a dog is comfortable and actually when a dog is uncomfortable and what they can look for. And number 5, Debbie dropped an amazing bomb of, let's talk about dog heroes. Let's talk about dogs that do amazing and incredible jobs and times when dogs and humans just sit really well together. That is just so helpful. Thank you so much, Debbie. That's really practical. And so tell us a little bit more about what dog trainers can expect if they were going to join your amazing team of KAD professionals. Like, what can they expect and how can they do that?
So our applications are open. So if you want to join Kids Around Dogs, you will have monthly webinars. So every month you have access to a webinar from a presenter that is specialist in their field. And you also have access to 3 main courses. One is a family life with dogs that takes you from pregnancy or adoption into teenagehood of the children when you're welcoming or want to welcome a dog into the family, or if you have dogs and you're welcoming a child into the family. Then there is the protocol to overcome the fear of dogs in kids. This is something I normally teach on Zoom myself directly to a small group each time. And it's exactly that. You're learning the protocol, and the protocol is designed in 10 sessions, 7 generally done online and 3 face-to-face, where you are helping children who, for a reason or another, are fearful of dogs, and you're helping to overcome this fear. So you can work then with your own client there. And our newest course is Dogs in Schools. It was written by Dr. Helen Lewis from Swansea University. And we have just been talking about it, but it's the course that teaches you how to assess a dog, how to help a dog that will then go into schools, and how to assess the school and the environment, member of staff, the children, so that you see all the aspects that are needed to be seen to help a dog that then will go into schools and working effectively with clients in a school environment. So those are the 3 main courses. And we have a library. I love the library. I love books.
I love books. Amazing.
I know you do. I have your book. It's signed.
I'm working towards being an approved KAD professional. So it's lovely to swap, isn't it? This is it. It's a wonderful community.
Yeah. It is indeed.
And what can we do once we are KAD approved? Like, how do we go and then educate people? How does that work?
So your name or your business name will be on our directories. If anyone then is looking for a KAD professional locally, they type in their name, the name of the city or postcode, and then you'll come up and they can call you directly. Very often as well, they come to me and they ask for help, and then I redirect them to the KAD approved professional businesses. So effectively, you can work with groups or private lessons. Again, school dogs, that's normally for private. And again, privately, most of the time for the protocol to overcome the fear of dogs. So you can definitely add a special, if you like, niche in a way to your business. And is also something that obviously I am very passionate about, helping kids and dogs. And I find, I know I'm a mom, but I find that a lot of KAD approved professionals are not parents themselves. They just realize how children are everywhere, dogs are everywhere. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure that the two can be happy together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And do you know what? From running training classes for the last sort of 10 years or so, I have to say, I was always amazed at how much better children are with dogs than adults. Yeah. So, a toddler will toddle over to the side of the training ring, and there'll be a dog there, and the dog's looking at the child, and the child's looking at the dog, and the parent will say, "Touch it," and the child will say, "Huh?" No. And they look at their parent, and they're like, "Oh, we've just met." It's so natural in so many ways, children, the way that they approach dogs often when they're young enough to be like, this is new information for me. I don't know this kid. Like, I'm learning. What is it? What does it do? Mm-hmm. And it's often the parent, I think, that can help teach really unhelpful lessons of what do we do with dogs? We pet the dog. And the child's like, I don't know him at all. And I love that. I love that children are sensitive enough to be like, actually, maybe, Mum, we make friends just by hanging out for a bit, rather than like, if he touched me, I don't know if I would be okay with that.
It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. But I like the fact is that obviously a child would trust the parents with that.
Sure.
Well, if Mum said to touch it, I'll touch it. Mum said to do it. But at the same time, when they start school or when they're in school, they really do come to trust their teachers and or member of staff. And the things that they learn at school, I love that, because then when they go home, most of the time, sometimes you go, what did you do at school? Nothing. 6 hours, you do nothing. Yeah. Never mind. But sometimes, out of the blue, they'll give you little information, something they learned at school.
Sure.
And I just love that. My daughter sometimes goes, oh, we did this. And then she tells you a 3-second fact. And I'm thinking, oh my God, after 6 hours, you learn one 3-second fact thing. But I'm happy with that. Take that.
Yeah. Well, this happened at the playground. That wasn't even a lesson. It was a life lesson. It was necessary.
For lunch I had. Okay. And she did it throughout her whole school life so far. Randomly, she'd come up with a fact. And very often the facts were not, in math we did this. It was never that, but it was more something artistic or something like the life path or things like this. So I would love to be, for our topic, to be into schools, kids go home and go, oh, Mom, did you know that when a dog yawn, for example, because when you have light music and a dog yawn, it might be because the music is too loud.
Yes.
You'd be like, oh, really? It might not be because he's tired. It's because, maybe you turn the music down. Things like this. Wouldn't it be amazing if even that one little fact sticks to the child, is one fact more than they knew before? And love it. I would love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're dog mad right now anyway, huh? There's a lot of dog child-based media. Paw Patrol is all over it.
Exactly.
Children are loving dogs. I think they always have, to be honest with you. So I am 100% behind you, Debbie. As I've always said, when I was given, I think a lot of the time in the world of dog training and behaviour, because our industry is subject to a lot of isolation, and a lot of professionals are sort of brought up to believe that they have to be a one-stop shop for everything. Like, a lot of people step into the world of dog training, they start to really look at some of the issues that exist. They're like, oh my goodness, nobody understands this. People are still doing this, and they start doing the job, and then suddenly I think the professionals are put under a lot of pressure to deliver a service in everything. And I'm a healthy believer that we all have strengths, and you should play to your strengths, and of course develop and grow in the areas that you're not quite so good at. But actually, if you meet somebody like I've met you, Debbie, who is doing exactly what I want to see done in the world, then stand beside that person, celebrate them, and encourage the work that they're doing, because it just means that you get to go and diversify in a different direction, So, if you would love to work with children and dogs, and you are a dog trainer, do get in touch with Debbie. She'd love to work with you. And if you have children that are a little bit nervous of dogs, Debbie now has an extensive network of dog trainers across the UK, and starting to edge into Europe, which is so exciting, for this bilingual training program, multilingual training program, that is really just going to impact the next generation of children and dogs and reduce bite incidents dramatically. And on that note, Debbie, should we have a quick conflab, as we promised to have, about the recent event that we held in Parliament? So for those of you that don't know what's been happening in the UK recently, the All-Party Parliamentary Dog Advisory Welfare Group, or APDOG, best APPG name ever, which is hosted by Mark Abraham as Secretariat, and Rosie Duffield is our Chief MP, who chairs our APPG. And in November 2022, we all gathered together to discuss the dog bite problem in the UK. And this first episode was called The Dog Bite Problem Part 1, The Facts. And we basically got together to really look at the problem properly, because I think a lot of the time we, as a nation, can hear about these horrible statistics in the news. This year we've had 9 people that have been tragically murdered by dogs. And the year before that we had 4. We lost 4 lives, and the year before that we lost 2. So that's a growth curve that's a bit scary. And one of our statisticians, the amazing Dr. John Tullock, was saying, actually, is this a trend? We're not sure yet. It's a really weird amount of tragedy. So in terms of the data, in terms of statistics, this might be an outlier, or it might be the beginning of a trend, and we're only going to know by, the next couple of years and how they play out. I just plead that it's not a trend. Please God, don't let this happen. But actually, no matter what, we can't turn our heads away any longer from the fact that this continues to happen. People continue to get killed by dogs, and that actually dog bite incidents that require hospitalisation have tripled in the last 20 years. So Debbie and I have been working on the background and the admin, and I co-lead that event with Jordan Shelley, the amazing campaigner who has brought the campaign to reduce the ear cropping in dogs. That is just a horrific and unnecessary practice. And there's some really exciting there's some really exciting legislation that is happening right now in the UK government. I'm really pleased to say a lot is being done. So Debbie, what else did you take away from that meeting? What did you think about our meeting together in Parliament in November?
So just to say something that you mentioned before, yes, we've seen a big increase of tragedies, which is I can't even imagine what that must be like for the families, and also injuries in general, because even if it's not a tragedy, some injuries can be life-changing. So whilst it doesn't have to be the death of someone, a bite can really be life-changing. And I think it was Dr. Andrea Chester from Birmingham Hospital. She was one of the speakers at the event in November, and she had some photos as well. She had some interviews. She interviewed one of the victims and then a victim's mum. And in both cases, the bite was not fatal, luckily. The mum that spoke said that the little girl now is fine, but obviously she's going to have a scar. And while now she's little and not bothered, when she's going to be older, that scar might affect her, her confidence. And what if some children point it out? And, all things like this. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be fatal to really damage you emotionally for life. Same goes for the other, the victim. Again, he has a scar and he said, I'm okay with it. Luckily, it wasn't too big as to, affect me or worse. But there is something that I took away, apart from the fact that it was beautiful to see that the community was there together, different experts in their field, from obviously you guys, the speakers, so Joanna and Jordan. Jordan said he couldn't make it because he had his car broke down. But I'm sure he'll speak at the next one. There was John Tullock and Kerry Westcott, who presented so well the situations, the problems that we are having, what's happening, what's going on. We had lawyers attending the meetings, as a member of public, all sorts of different people, just people that love their dogs. There was also a celebrity dog, Rachel was there. So, we had all sorts of people coming, attending. Was it 90 people, I think, did we say?
Yes, yeah. It was a
really
well-attended
meeting.
And
two MPs, two MPs there, brilliant attendance. So that showed me that people are interested. They want to do something that is positive and is constructive, that, that they see and realize the problem is there. We love dogs. We love people. Let's make sure that the two can live together happily. How do we do that? So that was the beautiful thing. Obviously, it was sad to see how many, just how big the problem effectively is. So that is always upsetting, isn't it?
And I'm so chuffed with the people in the room and the bravery, because actually this part one was the facts, and we needed to sit with this data. We needed to stop.
We have to.
The newspapers and the media outlets are quick to, and we all are, it's human nature, I think, that we're quick to come up with a conclusion when we hear about tragedy. We're like, oh gosh, that's really painful. Let's find one culprit and say, well, that's the reason why that's happening. And then I can point all of my frustration and sadness at that one causal factor, because it's easier for my brain to cope with that. And actually, I think what we really needed to do was sit with those stats and, my opening invitation to the audience, and I open that same invitation to all of you now, is that we are able to walk this journey of change together. and that we understand that it's a really complicated issue. The issue of dog bites and aggression is multifactorial. It's a huge economic issue, and I was fascinated to see actually that John Tillich was bringing some info that it's not everywhere. There are some very specific pockets of the UK where this is happening more than in others. And there's definitely a strong correlation to environments where people have less money, less economic access, and that it's more prevalent in rural areas, and actually it's women between the ages of 34 to 65 that are getting bitten more than they ever have before. So what's going on there, guys? And those are the facts, you know. And Carrie brought some absolutely fascinating data, and myth busted a lot of ideas that we're quite quick to throw down, such as these things happen, or you know, it's definitely this particular breed, or it's not this particular breed. Carrie really helped us to look at how to analyze data better and not just throw down our assumptions. And also just fascinating to see that sometimes the interventions that we think work aren't necessarily the things that work. And so they were talking which is not something that I want to hear as an educator, that actually education isn't the most successful thing. But you actually need both. And that's what they were saying, right? Is when it comes to things like obesity, we've been preaching 5 a day for a really long time. And actually it's been putting in something like a sugar tax that's actually decreasing. So it's reducing our access to sugar, and taxing companies that put a lot of sugar in stuff. And that is making a difference alongside the 5 a day narrative and changing human behaviour. So that was just all really fascinating. And so going forward, Debbie, do you want to so the part 2, we're really looking at the why now. So we've looked at the what in the part 1, and the part 2 and the part 3. Debbie, do you want to just explain to everybody what you know already about the structure of the next couple of parts, just so people can understand what to expect?
So part 2, which should be in February, we don't have the dates yet, but I'm sure that Hannah, on the website as well of the APDO, you'll be able to have, or you should be able to see the meetings of the part 1, and then the minutes, of part 1, and then I'm sure the dates of the other parts will come up as well. So for part 2 will be, the why. Is it the dog? So again, I'm pretty sure that we'll touch on the Dog Dangerous Act, and
DDA,
we'll touch on we'll touch on perhaps the health reason of the dog. You know, all the aspects of the dog training, I'm sure, will be mentioned, because obviously that should also be mentioned. So I'm sure we'll touch more on that. And I believe you have a special guest line up for a part 2, haven't you, Anna?
We do. I don't know if I can.
Can we mention that?
I don't know if I can mention that yet.
Okay, let's not. But whoever, anyway, even if he's not the person I had in mind, I didn't name it because I don't want.
Was this already dropped as a spoiler alert in part 1?
Yes, it was. That's the one. That's the one. So but I don't know if it's confirmed. So
it might happen in part 1. It might happen in part 2 or part 3. Okay. But one of the things that I called out for, we have an amazing, experienced veterinary forensics expert in Jim Crosby, who's over in the USA. And so we called out in part 1 for the UK police forces to release their case loads to Jim Crosby for the last 3 years, so that he could have a little look at some of the details and the contexts, and be able to come back and give us a picture of what we're seeing with our current tragedies in the UK due to dangerous dogs. And then Jim's also going to be able to give us a comparative picture with the US, because he deals with a lot of stuff over there. So we are so grateful to Jim Crosby for offering to do this work pro bono, and to come over to the UK and present for us. We're just really looking forward to releasing that caseload. And so he might be with us in February, it might be that he comes along for the part 3 and he needs a little bit more time, and that will be okay, to present some of the solutions. So yeah, part 2 we're looking at, is it the dogs? Is it dog training? Is it the breeding of the dogs? Is it rescue culture? Is it, you know, what is the why? We really need to start looking at the why with a really open mind. And I just encourage those of you who are going on this journey with us to do go back to part 2 and 3 of this podcast, where we talked to Dr. Henry Cloud, because he actually gave us some really lovely tips about how to listen to each other and have difficult conversations with love, and how to maintain that common unity that I invited us all to just focus on really in our part 1, that we all have a combined unified love for dogs. It's our common perspective, you know, whether you train dogs this way or that way, you know, ultimately your heart is for the dog. And you might disagree and say, actually, no, that person's heart isn't for the dog. They want this, this, and this. But to be honest with you, we do all have dogs in common. We're all trying to work towards a day where dogs are more responsibly owned and cared for, and that everybody can live in a much safer environment. So just really encourage everybody to keep that focus and to decide to step into conversations with people with respect, and to take responsibility for the bit that you can do that is different. And so yeah, thank you so much, Debbie. I can't wait for our part 2 and 3. And if you do want tickets to come along to that, the tickets are free. The events are in person, really important to remember. You can't watch these events online. Of course, you can have your say, but actually the best way to have your say is by being in the room. So we give lots of lovely time for discussion for the room. We really want to be solutions focused and not just, we need to lament. We need to be able to cry out for the frustration and the pain that a lot of these incidents have caused. And the topic of dog behaviour and management is so emotive to so many people. We don't want to underestimate that. But equally, these events are about saying, okay, what are we going to do collectively together, all of us? Because we need each other. Not one of us can do this. You know, just like Debbie and I are hanging out because we both love the idea of training children to hang out with dogs. I can tip my hat to her superior knowledge in this area and the time and effort she's put into building kids around dogs. And equally, I'm sure there's a dog professional down the road. It might be a vet, it might be a groomer, it might be a dog walker, it might be a rescue centre member of staff, it might be the dog warden. But we all really need to start working together. MPs, health professionals, educators, we've got to get our hands on this problem together and really decide to change the narrative for the future, I think. So
absolutely, couldn't agree more, indeed. Yeah.
Well, Debbie, you and I will definitely be chatting again, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
It's been so wonderful to have you explain all about kids around dogs and the amazing ways that you're using your What If to change the world. So if you want to keep in touch with Debbie, you can go to www.kidsarounddogs.co.uk. Again, Debbie's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok and Twitter. And don't forget that if you are down in the Dorset area, she also has an amazing dog training and behaviour business, Poco Dogs. So you can literally get your dog trained by Debbie herself, which I think is a massive honour. Debbie, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. It's been our pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love chatting to you. So any opportunity, I'm happy to.
Just going to do more and more and more. That's it. We'll have an update after our next parliamentary meeting. I'm sure in March or April, we will drop another update via the podcast too. But yeah, thank you on behalf of the future of dogs. I really do hope alongside you, Debbie, that the future of dogs and children is going to be bright and ideally in mainstream curriculum. That would be my heart too. So thank you so much for talking to us, and we will be loving and following you and all the impressive work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So thanks for listening, guys. If you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe for all of the latest updates. And if you have got big dreams, please keep dreaming them. Keep holding on to those what ifs and chasing them so that you too can be changing the world.